Picture this. You're standing in front of a single gold bar so heavy, it takes multiple adults to even nudge it. One of the most famous largest gold bars on public display weighs about 250 kilograms. If you could casually carry that home, congratulations, you wouldn't need a side hustle ever again. Now, here's the part that messes with your brain. If you took every piece of gold humans have ever mined, every coin, crown, ring, and bar, melted it down into one giant blob, it wouldn't fill a city. It wouldn't even fill a lake. According to widely cited estimates from the World Gold Council, it would make a cube only about 22 meters on each side. In other words, just a few Olympic swimming pools worth. That's it. That's the entire human gold story, physically. And yet, we treat this metal like it's magic. We literally use gold to survive in space, thin coatings that help manage heat and radiation. Then we turn the bone on Earth and sprinkle edible gold leaf on burgers and desserts, chew it, swallow it, and it does absolutely nothing. No taste, no nutrition. Just expensive glitter that politely exits your body later. So why? Why is this shiny yellow metal worth so much? Why did it shape empires, trigger mass migrations, and still sit at the center of modern finance long after we supposedly moved on? Let's start with what gold actually is. Gold is a chemical element. Its symbol was all from the Latin word orb, meaning something like shining doll. On the periodic table, it's the quiet kid that turns out to be weirdly overpowered. Gold has 3 real-world superpowers. First, it's incredibly resistant to corrosion. It doesn't rust. It doesn't tarnish the way silver does. That's why ancient gold can come out of a tomb after thousands of years looking basically smug. Gold's like, you guys aged? That's crazy. Second, it's absurdly malleable and ductile. You can hammer it into sheets so thin, they're almost translucent. You can draw it out into incredibly fine wire. For ancient people, long before chemistry, this was basically sorcery, a metal you could shape effortlessly that never decays. Third, it's an excellent conductor and is chemically stable. That combination is why modern electronics love it. It carries signals reliably, and it doesn't oxidize and fail the way cheaper metals can. Gold is the reason your phone can still behave after years of humidity, fingerprints, and questionable life choices. But here's the twist. Earth didn't make gold the way it makes, say, volcanic rock or diamonds. So here's the twist. Earth didn't make gold the way it makes, say, volcanic rock or diamonds. Not in your normal geological sense. Gold is born in violence. Most of the elements we're familiar with were forged in stars, but very heavy elements, like gold, require extreme conditions to form through a process physicists call rapid neutron capture, or the R process. One of the best supported cosmic sources is the collision of neutron stars, the ultra-dense remnants of massive stars that have already died. In 2017, scientists observed a neutron star merger, an event known as GW170817, using gravitational waves and telescopes across the world. The follow-up observations strongly supported the idea that these mergers produce heavy elements like gold. The universe has a way of making gold, but it's basically by smashing 2 dead stars together and spraying the ingredients across space like cosmic shrapnel. Over billions of years, that star-forged dust mixed into the crowd that became our solar system. Earth formed. And early in Earth's history, when the planet was hot and partially molten, most of the gold sank deep toward the core, because gold is dense and likes to hang out with other heavy metals. Meaning, the gold we can actually mine today, the gold in the crust, is the leftover scraps, the accessible crumbs, the tiny fraction that didn't sink, plus additional material delivered by meteorites after it's cold formed. So every gold ring, every gold coin, every bar in a vault is, in a very literal sense, recycled star debris. You're not digging up Earth metal. You're digging up an ancient cosmic souvenir, a dowry from the universe. Now, why do humans fall in love with it so hard? Because before there were banks or stock markets, value had to be something you could see, touch, and trust. And gold is visually loud, physically durable, and rare enough to be hard to fake at scale, especially in ancient time. In ancient Egypt, gold wasn't just wealth, it was theology. Egyptians associated gold with the sun and with immortality. Some texts and traditions describe it as the flesh of the gods. And when you look at artifacts like the burial mask of Tutankhamun, still shining after more than 3,000 years, you can feel why they believed it. If your world is full of decay, rot, and rust, and then you find a metal that doesn't guide, you don't call it chemically inert, you call it divine. Across the ocean, in the Americas, civilizations like the Maya, and especially the Inca, also treated gold as sacred, often linking it to the sun. You'll sometimes hear poetic phrases like the sweat of the sun. To many of these societies, gold wasn't primarily money. It was symbolism, ceremony, a material for the gods. Then the world changes because someone decides gold is not just holy, it's honorable. Fast forward to the 19th century, and gold becomes the fuel for one of the most dramatic population movements in modern history, gold rushes. California, 1848. A discovery at Sutter's Mill detonates a global migration. People drop everything, jobs, families, entire plans, and sprint toward a rumor. Not a guarantee, a rumor with glitter, and suddenly, the map rewrites itself. Boomtown's a period where there was almost nothing. Supply chains form overnight. Prices go insane. A pen costs more than your dignity. And yes, huge numbers of immigrants arrive, including Chinese laborers who faced brutal conditions and discrimination while doing backbreaking work that helped build the infrastructure of the American West, including railroads tied to the economic explosion gold helped trigger. That's one of gold's strangest powers. It doesn't just sit there being expensive. It reorganizes human behavior. It turns geography into destiny. But the biggest shift is still ahead. When gold stops being merely something you wear or chase, it becomes the anchor of money itself. For a long time, many countries operated on some form of the gold standard. The idea that currency is directly convertible into a fixed amount of gold. A paper note wasn't valuable because the ink was pretty. It was valuable because it was a coin ticket on a real physical metal. This did something psychologically powerful. It constrained governments. It limited how much money could be created, at least in theory. It made international exchange rates feel more stable because currencies were tied to the same rock-solid reference. But it also created problems, especially during wars, depressions, and periods, when economies needed flexibility. If your entire financial system is chained to the supply of a metal that's hard to expand quickly, you can end up with brutal deflation and financial stress. After World War II, the world moved into the Bretton Woods system, where the US dollar was linked to gold and other currencies were linked to the dollar. And then, in 1971, the United States effectively ended the dollar's convertibility into gold for foreign governments, an event often associated with President Nixon. That moment is one of the most important turning points in modern money. The world shifted fully into fiat currency, forged money backed not by a metal, but by government authority and collective trust. So, if gold is no longer the official backbone of money, why does it still matter? Why, in recent years, have central banks been buying significant amounts of gold, especially after decades where the trend was much more mixed? Public data tracked by organizations like the World Gold Council shows central banks have been net buyers for many years, with historically notable buying in the early 2020s and continued strong interest since then. If we're living in the age of digital finance, why are institutions still wanting something you can't email? Because gold isn't just a commodity, it's a hedge against certain kinds of fear. Gold tends to attract demand when people worry about inflation, currency debasement, sovereign debt problems, geopolitical conflict, or broader financial instability. It's not that gold is always up. It's that gold is widely treated as an asset that is not someone else's promise. A bond is a promise to pay. A bank deposit is a promise your bank can honor withdrawals. A currency note is a promise your government system holds. Gold is just there, heavy, silent, unimpressed. Now, before we get practical, let's take a quick detour into the weird and wonderful side of gold, because this is where it gets fun. In space, gold is literally part of the survival kit. You'll see gold-colored visors and gold-coated materials on spacecraft and astronaut helmets. Not as fashion, but as engineering. Thin layers of gold can reflect infrared radiation and help manage heat. Space is not cold in the way people imagine. It's a brutal environment of extreme temperature swings and radiation exposure. That gold sheen is doing real work. Next, your junk drawer is hiding a tiny gold mine. Modern electronics use gold in connectors and contacts because gold resists corrosion and maintains good conductivity over time. The amounts per device are small, but scaled across millions of phones, laptops, and circuit boards, it adds up. That's why e-waste recycling isn't just about being environmentally responsible. It can also be economically valuable. You've probably heard the comparison that a ton of certain electronic scrap can contain more recoverable gold than a ton of raw ore. The point isn't that your old phone is a treasure chest. The point is that modern life runs on tiny invisible flecks of gold. And yes, people eat gold. Edible gold leaf exists because gold is chemically inert. It doesn't react much inside your body, which is exactly why it has no flavor and no nutritional value. You're paying for a moment, a flex, a photo, a story. Did you ever try it? Just make sure it's specifically labeled food grade. Please don't freestyle this with mystery glitter. All right, back to reality. Should a normal person buy gold? Here's the most honest framework. Gold is not a magical wealth machine. It's not a startup. It doesn't invent products. It doesn't generate cash flow. It just sits there and gets repriced by the world's anxiety level. Real interest rates, currency moves, and supply-demand dynamics. That said, gold can play a useful role in a portfolio, especially as a diversifier and a potential hedge in specific scenarios. Many investors treat it less like a get-rich asset and more like financial insurance. So why do gold prices sometimes surge? Common drivers include geopolitical uncertainty, inflation scares, falling real yields, currency weakness, and strong institutional demand. When people feel the future is foggy, gold often benefits from that collective unease. Also, when real interest rates are high, holding non-yielding assets like gold can feel less attractive. When real yields fall, gold can look better by comparison. None of this is a law of physics, but these relationships show up often enough that professionals watch them. Now, if you want exposure to gold, you generally have a few main routes. Option 1, physical gold, bars or coin. This is the most straightforward. You can buy a bullion from reputable dealers, and what you own is what you own. But you need to think about storage, insurance, authenticity, and resale spreads. Also, physical gold usually comes with premiums over the spot price, and the premium can widen when demand spikes. Coins can be more liquid and recognizable, but sometimes carry higher premiums. Large bars can have lower premiums per ounce, but are less convenient to sell in pieces. And please remember, jewelry is usually not the same thing as investing. Jewelry often includes high labor costs, branding markups, and sometimes lower purity alloys. If you love it as jewelry, buy it as jewelry. If you want gold exposure, understand you may be paying a lot above the metal value, and you may not get that premium back when selling. Option 2, gold ETFs or similar funds. These can be convenient. You can buy and sell like a stock, avoid physical storage issues, and get relatively tight spreads. But you're adding layers of structure, management fees, the fund's custody model, and the fact that you own shares of a product tied to gold, not a gold bar in your closet. Read what the fund actually holds, how it stores, and what happens in edge cases. Option 3, paper gold, futures, CFD, leveraged products. These are tools, not toys. They can be useful for hedging or short-term trading, but leverage can wipe you out fast. If your goal is long-term stability, leverage is often the opposite of what you want. Option 4, gold mining stocks. These are not the same as gold. Mining companies have operational risks, political risks, management risks, energy costs, and they can behave like equities even when gold behaves defensively. They can outperform gold in bull runs. They can also get crushed for reasons that have nothing to do with the spot price. So what's the practical, boring, grown-up takeaway? If you're considering gold, think of it as a seatbelt, not a rocket engine. A modest allocation might help diversify, depending on your goals and risk tolerance. But going all in because you saw a scary headline is usually not a plan. It's a mood. And yes, gold could drop, sometimes sharply. It is not a guaranteed profit button. Also, quick reminder, I'm not your financial advisor, and this isn't personal financial advice. Taxes, regulations, and product details vary by country, and your situation matters. Now let's zoom out for the ending, because this is the part I love. Gold is a paradox. It's a fragment of ancient cosmic catastrophe, born when dead stars collided. Yet it ends up on human fingers, in royal tombs, in smartphones, in central bank vaults, and occasionally on top of a dessert that tastes exactly like. Dessert. Gold itself never changed. What changed is us. We assigned it divinity, then we assigned it power, then we assigned it monetary authority, and now we assign it meaning in a world where money is mostly digits on screen.